AD 68. The self-unaliving of Nero drove Rome into political turmoil. The emperor died with no heir. The throne was up for grabs, and vicious prospective rulers circled it like sharks that smell blood in the water. In the midst of this, a veteran general and statesman, Galba, picked up the crown, but not everyone was satisfied. Galba, despite being a decorated veteran, was by no means a politician. His old-fashioned severity and his failure to reward troops who helped him reach the throne created a new turmoil almost immediately. In the end, he was assassinated, cut down by his own personal Praetorian guards. Then Aulus Vitellius enters the picture. Vitellius was not a brilliant military commander. His father was a Roman statesman, a man who spent his life navigating the politics of Rome. With that prestige, Vitellius had built a career as a political insider. Most historians described him as personable, humorous, and able to make influential friends. His strength didn't come from his military prowess. It was his ability to make the right friends at the right time. While stationed at the Rhine frontier in modern-day Germany, his soldiers, who were tired of the political instability, crowned Vitellius the Emperor of Rome. There was just one problem. The Senate hadn't voted. Rome hadn't been consulted. An army simply decided. But Vitellius's army wasn't the only one with ambitions, because things weren't going so well in Rome. With the assassination of Galba, who had only ruled for 7 months, a wealthy senator, Otho, had now declared himself emperor. So now there were 2 emperors. Vitellius marched toward Italy. Meanwhile, Otho assembled his army, one marching to claim what's his, the other to defend. And the forces collided at a place called Bedriacum in April 69 AD, giving the battle its name, First Battle of Bedriacum. Vitellius had the clear advantage in numbers, reported at approximately 70,000 men, and his warriors were battle-hardened. Otho, on the other hand, had somewhere between 40 and 50,000 men, though many were green recruits rather than seasoned soldiers, bolstered by the more reliable Praetorian Guard. Still, the battle was fierce. Neither side gave ground for hours. It lasted almost a whole day, and in the end, Vitellius won, albeit suffering heavy losses. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Vitellius in Rome. Because he didn't go to Rome right away. He traveled slowly through Italy, receiving congratulations from cities, reviewing troops, and celebrating his victory. By the time he reached Rome, the city had already accepted him as the legitimate ruler. And his rule didn't focus on stability or order. He projected a simple message: feast and have fun, a new emperor has arrived. Which was a reprieve from long civil unrest, and initially the ordinary populace appreciated it. Other emperors, like Augustus and Tiberius, focused on order and philosophy, whereas Vitellius preferred gluttony and pleasure. The ancient historian Suetonius writes that Vitellius could remember the names of almost everyone he met and enjoyed casual conversation. It made him personally likable, but lacking imperial dignity. His feasts were one of a kind and legendary. One of his banquets reportedly included the brains of pheasants, tongues of flamingos, livers of rare fish, torn from waters most Romans would never see, peacocks, oysters pulled from a dozen different seas, shellfish so exotic most senators couldn't have named them, and spices imported from the far edges of the East at a cost that could have paid an army, because it was not just a feast, it was a symbol of Roman influence in the contemporary world. But during Vitellius's reign, the Roman coffers were already depleted. Because the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD and the subsequent large-scale reconstruction under Nero had drained much of the treasury. So Vitellius inherited a grander Rome, but an empty one. A golden palace, which had more gold covering its ceilings than there was in the royal coffers. But Vitellius didn't care about any of that. He didn't understand money. What he understood was what people wanted, and Romans wanted entertainment. So he gave it to them, endlessly. He sponsored gladiatorial contests, wild animal hunts, theatrical performances, and chariot races. Now, other emperors staged these games to project military strength, to celebrate victories. But Vitellius, he simply did it for the love of the game. He'd spend hours watching, learning the craft of combat, discussing gladiators the way the modern world talks about Messi or Ronaldo. See, Roman emperors traditionally stayed above the spectacle, tucked away in the imperial box. But Vitellius was different. He mingled freely with gladiators, trainers, actors, performers. He visited training schools. He discussed fighting techniques. He rewarded successful fighters generously. And ancient historians remember this as one of the most colorful and controversial episodes in Roman history. His relationship with the army was his greatest strength and his greatest weakness. The Rhine legions adored him. He rewarded them lavishly. But with every denarius spent, there was more to pay. Because the army expected payment, lots of it. Veterans demanded lands, officers wanted promotions, and the treasury simply couldn't keep up. Meanwhile, other armies throughout the Roman Empire began asking why German legions alone should get to decide who becomes emperor. Because while Vitellius enjoyed Rome, trouble was brewing in the east. Another general, Vespasian, was campaigning in Judea, crushing the first Jewish revolt. And Vespasian was disciplined, practical, experienced, respected by his generals, the polar opposite of Vitellius. In July of 69 AD, the Eastern legions proclaimed Vespasian emperor. Now there were two kings again. Soon after, Vespasian was joined by Egypt, Syria, and the Danube legions. And with that, another civil war, right at the gates of Rome. Vitellius, though, he didn't have any worries. While Vespasian was building an army, Vitellius remained focused on ceremonies, feasts, and maintaining his popularity in Rome. He sent a small force north, but he failed to show the vigor he'd once shown before becoming emperor. By autumn, as tension over the coming war grew, shortages and uncertainty spread. Political loyalties shifted. Senators quietly began preparing for a new emperor. Vitellius's support dwindled, and soon, Rome wasn't talking about his feasts anymore. They were talking about his downfall. After that, in October 69 AD, the opposing forces collided again, and Vitellius's army got crushed, right where it all started, Bedriacum. That battle is known as the Second Battle of Bedriacum. Vitellius remained in Rome. Street fighting erupted throughout the city. The Capitoline Hill caught fire. Temples burned. Romans fought Romans in one of the bloodiest episodes in the history of the city. Witnessing his defeat, Vitellius tried to hide in the imperial palace, in the doorkeeper's quarters, as some accounts describe. He was discovered by Flavian soldiers, dragged through the streets with a noose around his neck, mocked by the very same crowd who'd once cherished him, and brought to the Gemonian stairs, a place where the bodies of executed criminals were displayed. He was killed, most likely by repeated blows and sword thrusts, his corpse thrown into the Tiber River. His reign is a cautionary tale, because it showed how quickly military success could evaporate. He marched into Rome as the victor of a brutal civil war, only to lose the throne to another army within that very same year. He became the symbol of the dangers of indulgence and complacency at the very moment the empire needed decisive leadership. If you enjoyed this dive into the year of the four emperors, make sure to hit subscribe. There's a lot more Roman history where this came from.